the one thing we've learned about Democrats and Republicans in terms of liberals and conservatives alike, there is a distinction when it comes to empire. Liberals, Democrats sell empire much better than conservatives / Republicans do. And so when it comes to these content creators that have that are worth their salt in any capacity, very rarely, if ever, do you see somebody on the left truly deviate away from the script. And the one person on the left who is deviating away from the script, that actually has a following, I'm not saying we don't have a following. Ours is small but mighty. In terms of somebody who has an actual substantial following that can have an impact on elections, that is Hasan Piker. And the fact that they feel the need to have the Democratic establishment go after him with everything they've got. And again, I'm not a Hasan fan, but I can respect when somebody is espousing a message that is very much agreeable, even if you're not into his shtick, but you can still respect the message. And that's the same thing that we've been talking about on this channel for a while. You know, we have some criticism about some of the people that I've collaborated with. Well, here's the thing. I don't really care where you are on the political spectrum, minus a few people where we know that their intentions are very nefarious. If your intention is to break the Israel-U.S. State Department alliance that is controlling our country, then I will break bread with you. And if that's what Hasan Piker's intentions are, and that's what he's trying to do, then I will welcome it. And when bad faith attacks, like the likes of Mallory McMorrow, who we all know is now the darling of the very highly contested Senate race in the state of Michigan against Abdul El-Sayed, who I do believe has a chance to win that primary, you're going to see bad faith attacks that are going to come from the left, or against the left, I should say. There is nothing left about the Democratic establishment. And I really don't like it when people suggest that that is left. They are not. So it is imperative. It is imperative that people understand the nuanced message of somebody like Hasan Piker. This is from the other day. Listen carefully.
Like, I am a diasporoid, okay? I am a fucking diasporoid myself. And I can't go back to Turkey. Turkey has no free speech. Turkey is very heavy in its prosecution and persecution of people who have spoken out against the state. I've written extensively back in the day at Huffington Post about the Turkish coup d'etat, okay? And I was critical of the government regardless, right? I was critical of the government, and I still am, and I haven't stopped being critical of the Erdogan regime. However, there has never been a moment in my life where I have felt the indignity in my soul of saying Turkey would be better off with an American puppet installed in its leadership.
And that, more than anything else, is something that we have seen relentlessly here in the United States over the past few weeks, including somebody that I know personally, who is cheering on Israel and the U.S. in terms of what they're doing in Iran, cheering it on. The only people in the Iranian diaspora that is being given a platform are people that are on board with Western expansionism. And again, that's not to celebrate Erdogan or the Ayatollah. We don't know when to mind our business. But again, so much of that has to do with the fact that Israel, our aircraft carrier in the Middle East, is hell-bent on this idea that they're going to have this Greater Israel project come to life. Not happening. Because our country doesn't want it. Not even a little bit. So if we come to that realization that our country is not going to accept this Don Roe doctrine, as they're calling it, or the Greater Israel project, if the consensus from the American people as a whole, not ideologically different in any capacity, if the ideological sentiment across the board is we don't want any part of this, it's not a question of if, it's a question of when. The big difference between the conservative side and the liberal side is everybody used to always say that conservatives fall in line and liberals fall in love. No, liberals fall in line. And they will. But there is a split happening. Now, the question is, because the difference between somebody like Hasan Piker and perhaps even somebody like Tucker Carlson is that Tucker Carlson is not somebody who adamantly says you have to support the GOP, better GOP. Hasan Piker kind of splits the difference between you should go third party, but you should support good Democrats. I guess that's probably as good as it's going to get at that level, because no one else is talking like that. Anyone else within earshot that is still, playing footsies with the Democratic Party, whether it's Cenk, whether it's Crystal and Kyle, I could go on and on, but people that have sizable platforms, the intentions of what the policies that they espouse or what they're fighting for are certainly reasonable for the most part. However, they are at the end of the day going to tell you to support the Democratic Party unequivocally when it comes to voting. And that is not a solution, and it never will be. So you have to get away from that. And as soon as somebody decides to talk about, well, how are we going to get away from it? This is how it's done. This is how the conversation starts to happen where change is inevitable. And that's why they want to shut Hasan up more than any other reason, because he's deviating away from the script. And when you deviate away from the script, you get yourself into trouble. And there is a lot to cover here this evening, so buckle up. We will continue.
Is the most undignified, disgusting, worm-like behavior that I have ever seen. And for some weird fucking reason, there are so many in the Iranian diaspora, so many in the Cuban diaspora, so many in the Venezuelan diaspora that straight up think that this is the appropriate measure. It is disgusting to me. It's heinous. It's heinous behavior. I'm telling you, my uncle died. I couldn't go back to my country that I grew up in to see his funeral. And if you think, in spite of all of that, when Israel comes out and says Turkey's next, if you think I'm not going to fucking say, fuck that shit, no matter how much I hate Erdogan, if you think I'm not going to fucking sit there and say, oh yeah, it would be much better if I could just go back to Turkey, see my fucking family, when Israel and America go and fucking blow up different Turkish installations and completely take over the country. That is disgusting.
This is what Jen talks about almost every show, about privilege. And you could call it whatever privilege you want. I don't call it white privilege. I call it American privilege. Because at the end of the day, the people who are espousing this message of, oh my God, we have to go in there and save them with Israel, the genociders, the ones that are bringing World War III, the ones that'll blow up the world if push comes to shove. Yeah, let's unite with them. Because my feelings, and I want to go back to Tehran, and I want to go see my homeland. This is the type of shit that we have to deal with on the home front. Anyone who thinks that there is even an ounce worth of sweat that is worth throwing in the direction of Israel for any reason, you are giving them a lifeline that they don't deserve, that they should never have. Do not delay the inevitable. Let them go. They're going to go. And if you want to go with them, we will be happy to accommodate. If you have a problem with Iran and the Ayatollah and Shia Islam, that's a whole other argument. And that is an argument that we can have. But Iran and their diaspora, their lobby, does not run our lives. The Israel lobby, in conjunction with our billionaire Zionist ruling class, does run our lives. And until we deal with that, this problem is not going away. And to even give them an ounce of support, as far as I'm concerned, you are part of the problem. You are an enemy. You're not going to help solve us getting out of this problem. You've made Jen's day. Now let's keep going. Hasan is right, especially about this. You don't have to like what's going on, but you have to be strategic and nuanced. And most people don't want to do that. And most people also can't see their privilege when it shows, but it becomes too obvious. Let's keep smashing that like button, guys. Let's keep getting this out there. We will continue.
That is the most worm-like fucking behavior that anyone could ever engage in. It's disgusting to me. It's heartless. It's disgusting. It already happened in Turkey too. Fethullah Gülen is an American CIA asset, okay? And they were able to develop a parallel state in Turkey. They took over the courts. They took over the police. They took over the fucking military. And they tried to do a fucking coup d'etat, and it was very bloody. Turkish people died. They took over Turkish fighter jets, and they bombed Turkish soil, killing Turkish civilians. Those jets got refueled by Americans. Those jets took off from American military bases. Have you no fucking dignity? Have you no soul? How can you see your countrymen, your countrywomen die directed by the American state, and then think this is somehow going to lead to a positive result? Insanity. It is disgusting. Maybe that's the reason why I'm so fucking rough on the diaspora populations in the United States of America that fucking beg for this shit. It disgusts me, okay? There are so many fucking Turkish people that despise me for recognizing the Armenian genocide, for saying that, like, Kurds deserve their own state, they're stateless. In spite of all that, in spite of all the shit that I eat from Turkish nationalists, from Turkish Islamists don't actually fucking hate me as much anymore because of my advocacy for the Palestinian cause, but from the Turkish nationalists, from Turkish liberals, in spite of all of that, you will never see me defend intervention in Turkey. You will never see me defend intervention in the hands of America and Israel in Turkey. I will always stand against that. It is fucking disgusting.
And that is, in so many ways, the whole point. You know, if we had a legitimate United Nations, for example, collectively people could work together to deal with these atrocities, but that's not how it works. It works based on the whim of the U.S. Western hegemony, which is not very big, but we do still have the most powerful military in the world. And by that measure, we basically go around doing whatever the hell we want. Now, on Monday, with Jen, we're going to cover this in greater length. We're going to touch upon the BB files. We're going to touch upon a whole bunch of key issues as to why this is all coming apart at the seams. And obviously, a lot of it has to do with the Zio billionaire class and the whims of what they want. But what's happening now to our soldiers, it's a nightmare. And so when you have the privilege of suggesting, oh, yeah, let's definitely back the U.S. and Israel against Iran because Iran's worse, by what measurement? You don't have any. You may not like the way things are run in that country, but either you are an American or you are not. You have to decide, where are you going? Because we are in a revolutionary period in this country. It's happening. It's happening as we speak. So what does that shift look like? Well, be prepared, because so much of what we are going to see, it's going to get worse from here. I had my own personal situation that I had to deal with the other day that I'm going to get into at the end of the show. So you'll want to stick around for that. Speaking truth to power under normal circumstances when things are fine, very little, if anything, is generally done about it then. When you speak truth to power when the empire is collapsing, watch how their claws come out. Let's keep hitting that like button, guys. The claws will continue to come out because this is how they operate. This is the modus operandi of the empire in motion. So what if wannabe Senator Mallory McMorrow or Governor, Andy Bashir comes out and makes his jackass of a statement about, why are you judging me for not condemning Israel? Because this is the hill you will all die on, and we will see to it that you do. Even if it doesn't happen at the ballot box, it's going to happen as a nation. They are going to die on this hill. This is why we inevitably will bring some semblance of a revolutionary change. That's what's coming. And I want to give credit where it's due to Hasan, because if he wasn't having any type of an impact, if he wasn't the person that was saying things that wasn't acceptable to the Democratic establishment, then they wouldn't care. But his platform's too big. And yes, he is Cenk Uyghur's nephew. And yes, you can call him a Nepo baby if you want, because he was given a very privileged position to build a massive audience through the Young Turks. And you know what? Pretty much anybody else would do the same. He has his audience, and he's trying to do, at least in his mind, what is best for humanity. Now, you don't have to agree with everything he says, and I certainly don't. But when it comes to this particular issue, and for the most part on foreign policy, I don't know. Become a patron. I'll say become a $10 patron. That's my offer, and then I'll sign you up. And you can't just join and then leave. Got to stay for a little while. I think, and therein lies the rub. Hasan, according to David Hunter, Hasan today went on with Kyle Kulinski and said that he would support AOC in 2028. Sorry, he continues to propagandize that we can vote our way out of this tyranny. For Hasan, that weighs the Democratic Party. And I totally agree that it's not going to solve anything. Does he think that he can help facilitate some type of an election of AOC, which is not happening? But let's just say hypothetically that it does. Does he think that he's going to be what, the Secretary of State? Does he think he's going to be dictating policy? No, what he needs to be doing is figure out how to continue to push the BDS movement, for example. Now, I don't know if he's doing that or not, but I know we do it here. And that's our job. Our job is to continue to cultivate as much of this anti-war, pro-Constitution movement that we can get our hands on. Because in the end, we only have each other.